The esthetician becomes to the dermatologist what a general nurse practitioner is to a doctor. For estheticians, that means that there's advanced education that occurs, and 90% of our education when it comes to specialties is post-education.
Welcome to the Learn Skin podcast with me, Dr. Raja.
And me, Dr. Hadar, where we discuss all things skin.
Join us as we delve into the art and science of skin health in today's episode.
Hey, Raja, can you say the thing I told you to tell them?
Of course. We are board-certified dermatologists. This podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is not considered medical advice, nor does it serve as a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. All opinions shared do not express the views of Learn Health, Inc. Let's get to the good stuff.
Hey, Raja, how are you today?
Hey, Hadar, what's going on this sunny time? We're talking about estheticians and aesthetics, aren't we?
Yes, we are. You know, in dermatology, I know you practice and I practice, and we always have these people who are in our sphere, you know, like people who do hair and hair care, and people who do nails and nail care, and people who do skin and skin care. And we never really pay attention to it, but we actually all work in the same ecosystem, so to speak. And we thought it would be interesting to kind of get that perspective and bring it in, especially because we're trying to create, a cohesive community. So what do you think?
Absolutely. And in fact, we have a special guest today because we have a 4-time award-winning licensed esthetician who's licensed both in Washington and California. That's notable because the environments are totally different. You've got wet and humid versus maybe dry and sunny. So you've got skin reacting in a different way. So a lot of clinical knowledge. And his name is Richard Merrill, and he is the founder of Richard Merrill Consulting, which provides business consulting, marketing services, digital media, and printing solutions as a practical one-stop resource to help spa professionals build more profitable businesses. So, Hadar, I can't think of anyone that would be a better fit for this podcast, someone who knows the business side of things and is a practitioner. Richard, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to talk about esthetician services today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join the conversation and, as you guys said, bridge the gap between the dermatologist and the esthetician, who quite often work together hand in hand to get results for our clients.
Now, let me start by just saying that I want to say Richard and I mean, how many years ago was it now, Richard? We wrote an article together talking about topical vitamin C and a few ingredients. I mean, that's been several years ago. But that was such a cool collaboration, wasn't it? Because you brought your practicality and your ingredient knowledge, and I brought in a bit of the research and whatnot. And it was a really great collaboration.
It was 2015, and we started with vitamin C, and then we went into doing niacinamide and retinol. And we even did a fun article about the difference between an esthetician and a dermatologist and how they work together, which was just revived on the Learn Skin blog.
Where does the time go? Richard, I can't believe that was 7 years ago. And I appreciate you just reviving that, and how apropos, because we want to talk about estheticians. So can you give us a background on what is the training that an esthetician goes through? And the reason I bring this up is a lot of people get confused between, say, like a cosmetologist or a dermatologist or an esthetician. I think it's not that clear to a lot of folks. And I think this would be a real nice opportunity to really talk about the expertise of an esthetician.
So estheticians are specifically trained to assist clients in improving the appearance of their skin. And it's interesting because that verbiage is very specific. A dermatologist can treat skin conditions, where an esthetician is helping to improve the appearance of. And it's a very specific kind of differentiation that's important, especially if you're looking for help with your skincare and your skincare needs. Dermatologists are trained to look at the kind of medical conditions of skincare, where estheticians are looking at the everyday overall health of the skin. So we're looking at things like acne, hyperpigmentation, premature aging, and creating treatment plans for the consumer to kind of prevent them from needing those corrective procedures later in life, because prevention is always, as I say, more affordable than correction. And so we really focus on that preventative care and creating healthy lifestyle choices so that you have long-term healthcare in the skin. And then from our position, we also, those who like to practice advanced aesthetics in the states that allow it, will work with dermatologists and plastic surgeons and provide post-treatment care. So a lot of times the dermatologist will do the big procedure, and then you'll continue to see an esthetician for that post-care during the healing process. And what's really interesting about aesthetics is, depending on what state you're in, the education varies kind of dramatically in the United States. In other countries, it's actually a degree, but here in the United States, it's anywhere from a 200 to a 1,200-hour course for aesthetics. And it really just depends on what the state offers. But the education is really kind of similar no matter how many hours. Where estheticians start to really shine is once you receive your license, we get into specialties. And that's where you see estheticians that specialize in acne. You see estheticians that specialize in premature aging or corrective aging services. And now you have master and advanced estheticians in 6 different states that can provide laser treatments and some real cool corrective treatments under a dermatologist, as long as they have a medical supervised facility. So it's kind of all over the place depending on where you are, but our main focus, it all comes down to, how can we help you improve the appearance of your skin and maintain it for long-term health?
You know, Richard, that's really cool, actually, that the practice is evolving as you describe it. And some states seem to be more advanced, some states are kind of catching up. But I wanted to get back to that training because it is important for doctors, for example, to know how and at what level they can discuss certain issues. What is the brief kind of curriculum? Like, what topics are covered? You mentioned different length of training, but I assume that either here or in Europe, the core curriculum hovers about certain things, right?
So primarily the purpose here in the United States for licensure is client safety and sanitation. So when we're in school before we're licensed, the bulk of our education is really about understanding how ingredients interact with the skin. If we should come across an adverse reaction, how to correct that adverse reaction within our scope, as well as just making sure that everything we do in the treatment room is safe for the client, which is where the scope kind of starts to vary. Because as estheticians, we want to make sure that we provide a service that is valuable to the customer and their needs. However, sometimes a client might come to us and have a concern that's beyond our scope of practice, like advanced acne. You know, there are different levels of acne. And for us, we can treat certain levels. And then there are times where we have to refer out to a dermatologist and a medical professional. And so when we're talking like just baseline, what does every state cover? It's really about client sanitation and also being able to recognize what skin conditions might be presenting. So a lot of times estheticians, because we're seeing clients a little bit more regularly and consistently, we'll notice when there's a change in moles, or we'll notice when a condition starts to progress. And while we may not be able to treat it, we can be a second set of eyes to the client and say, hey, we've noticed this change in your skin. And even though we can't treat it directly, we can be that set of eyes that kind of gives you that warning and says, hey, you might want to have this checked out by a medical professional.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the biggest resources we are to clients, is just being that second set of eyes.
You know, Hadar, just to add into that, because we have estheticians that work with us, and both in our medical practice and in our integrative aesthetic practice. And I have to say, Richard, I really echo everything you say, because when patients come in to see a dermatologist, it's usually a fairly quick visit. I mean, if there's a surgery, perhaps I get to chit chat while I'm doing the surgery for, say, maybe 30 minutes. Frequently, it's just 20 minutes. But I think when they come in for a service with an esthetician, I feel like there's a deeper bond that's built in there. And I feel that that allows for not only that connection, but then for the esthetician to really speak about the much larger picture about skincare. Even if they're not delivering the services, I feel like it's so vital in the way they may be able to talk about other medical services that might be available. Or in our case, we have a naturopathic doctor, and frequently that esthetician communication is what initially gets the patient to think about, oh my gosh, this is what naturopathic medicine is. I would have never thought about this, but here's a trusted person that's talking to me while I'm getting treatments. And then they will go on to then book other treatments. And yes, you can look at it from a revenue perspective, but I look at it as a patient education perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Raja, you're going into the more advanced model, but I think what I find so intriguing and actually a very exciting opportunity for everybody who cares about skin health is that now you have these boots on the ground, these estheticians who are trained in safety and understanding ingredients and can support the work that's being done. And I know in my practice, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, my hair stylist noticed something on my scalp and they wanted it checked out. Or my esthetician said, you should go. This acne is not for me. This acne, just like you said, Richard, exactly that. And that whole network working together could do probably much more, which is why we wanted to kind of bridge those gaps, as you beautifully said, Richard, and make sure that we have a community that can communicate back and forth and actually improve patient outcomes. Richard, I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about this collaboration and you have the vantage point of advising other estheticians, looking at different models. Where do you find that this model works best? And I refer specifically to the esthetician working with a dermatologist. We heard Roger's experience, but maybe you can tell us, where does it work the best? Where do dermatologists and estheticians really jive?
So it's interesting when an esthetician decides to go, we kind of categorize that as advanced aesthetics when you're working with a derma or a plastic surgeon. And when a professional skincare provider decides that that's the route of their career that they want to go, it is a lot easier today than it used to be. The bridge has definitely been built, but I think we're still evolving it, because there's a thing called medical delegation. So an esthetician can work in a plastic surgeon's office or a dermatologist's office. And I guess the best kind of correlation I can provide is, in those scenarios, the esthetician becomes to the dermatologist what a general nurse practitioner is to a doctor in a medical setting. Is we really become the person that does the most interaction and kind of hands-on with the client. And for estheticians, that means that there's advanced education that occurs. And what I think a lot of consumers don't know is 90% of our education when it comes to specialties is post-education, which I think is why there's such a variance in conversation state to state in the United States, is because the states that have the heavier medical presence, so California, Florida, New York, and Texas, you see a lot more medical delegation and a lot more estheticians who practice in a medical environment. And so a lot of times they're actually practicing under the doctor's license. And there's this interesting space where they're knowledgeable. They can look for contraindications that say, hey, this client isn't actually prepared for this service, so we need to do some prep work to get them ready. And in those situations, the esthetician will be the one doing that prep work. And then post-treatment, when you're looking at manual lymphatic drainage and really helping to kind of work with the skin in its natural processes, that's the esthetician. So we're really that support person that is before and after those big procedures. And when you talk about things like laser, my experience is that the doctors they come in, they have the consult with the patient or the client, and they gather the medical history, where the esthetician really gets to kind of have that personal relationship. And again, we're seeing the client a lot more. We're seeing them more frequently because we're not necessarily doing the corrective stuff that is a one-time treatment. We're doing the stuff because skincare is really about consistency. What you do at home, what you do every day is where your results really come from. And when something starts to go off kilter, an esthetician is going to be a lot easier to get a hold of than the medical professionals, whether it's your plastic surgeon, your dermatologist, or even, the nurse practitioners that work in those settings. We just kind of become that gateway to really provide a really big support system.
Right. And it sounds like it's very modular and kind of flexible to the practitioners who decide to work together in trying to find where is the sweet spot and where can you collaborate the best. I really like this actually. And before I get to my next question, I mean, I think one of the reasons we're doing this is because we wanted to build a community. And one of the ways to do this is kind of trying to bring the people together. And I know that you've been very helpful in setting up some educational activity on Learn Skin, right?
So we just launched in the beginning of this year the Integrative Esthetician Certification Program, and it's several brilliant minds from the aesthetic industry have partnered with the Learn Skin board to create a peer-reviewed certification program that allows estheticians to integrate new ways of achieving results that aren't necessarily the advanced. I think a lot of times when you start talking organic and integrative and holistic, there's a misunderstanding in the general population that that means less results. And what we're hoping to bring out of this educational resource is that you can get advanced results with holistic, Ayurvedic, and integrative approaches if you have that knowledge, education, and foundation. And so what we've done is we've brought together professionals from all around the world to share their expertise in this overall kind of concept so that we can really start equipping the licensed spa professional with more tools to make them a better fit if they decided to even work in that plastic derm environment. Raja said they could work in that integrative or naturopath experience, which I think is really new in our industry, which is kind of fun to watch it evolve. Because again, I think the general understanding is that the less advanced the skincare is, the less results. And that's just not the case. And so we're changing professional minds, which is also changing consumer minds. It's really kind of exciting to watch how the evolution is changing so many different parts of this puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting that this integrative esthetician program is off the ground because it really also speaks to the fact that the research arena has shifted now. You have a lot more around botanicals and phytochemicals, which in fact, this whole notion of being advanced with the standard ingredients has now shifted to say the botanicals can give you this whole different arena of antioxidant or like a retinoid like activities, or say it's some other sort of oral approach that maybe you're working synergistically so that you have knowledge and know that you can then talk to maybe a synergy with the naturopathic doctor or a dermatologist. I really do see this as the wave that's going to be the best way to go because now you're really pulling in all of these perspectives. And why would you practice dermatology or aesthetics or anything with just only one perspective? Let's bring in the best of all the perspectives. So, Richard, we're so excited about this program and so excited that you're a part of it.
I'm excited to be a part of it too, because I think that professionals have gone really far in what we've categorized as advanced aesthetics. And I think that it's really gotten just too aggressive. And so I think it's really nice to be able to bring this conversation where we can still get results, because the one thing that has really changed for the overall consumer is they're busy. When we first started talking about beauty services, there was downtime. You couldn't go in the sun for a week to 2 weeks after certain procedures, where now with this kind of integrative approach, we're able to provide some advanced treatments and results without interrupting the patient's daily life. And I think that's really an important thing as we talk about the evolution of this industry, because all of us are busy now. There's not one person on this planet, I think, that can say that they're not always busy. We just keep getting busier and busier and busier. And so it's really nice to have new conversations with some old tools that get great results that I think we kind of forgot about for a while. We've gotten to this rut of everything being so advanced and aggressive that we're kind of starting to find a really nice balance of both, which is a beautiful thing for everyone.
Yeah, and I think what's great is that in addition to that certificate program, now for the first time in our Integrative Dermatology Symposium, we're going to actually have an esthetician track. So people who want to learn more, but also physically be together in that community can actually do that. So I'm very excited about that as well, all kind of speaking to the ability to build community, to keep bridging that gap. Now, let's say I'm a dermatologist and I have a practice somewhere, I'm part of a group, and I want to bring an esthetician under our wings and kind of start looking at the benefits. How should I go about this? I mean, clearly the first step is to get someone who did the esthetician certificate program at Learn Skin. That's clear. But what are the very basic steps that we need to kind of go through? Maybe some infrastructure we need to have. How should I approach this?
So something I've been working on that kind of brought me into the IET, the Integrative Esthetician track at IDS, brought me into that conversation is I actually work with a school that provides both basic aesthetic licensure and advanced education. And what we have found at that school is that, and it's in a state that is predominantly got the medical license and the plastics and derms kind of run the beauty industry there. And so we wanted to bridge that gap. We wanted licensed professionals to be able to have an introduction. And so for those medical professionals that are looking for estheticians, they absolutely should be reaching out to the schools in their area, because a lot of times estheticians that enter the program know from the moment that they enter that initial licensure program that they want to be either that advanced clinical approach, or they want to be the holistic independent practitioner that does more of the relaxation services. And if they know that, the next thing is for them to be able to say that to their school and get resources. And I think the biggest challenges schools have with job placement is having the resources to make the referral. So I believe if dermatologists and med spa owners were reaching out and developing a relationship with their local schools, we could have a much broader conversation. And I think that's what excites me about the integrative esthetician track is we're actually taking both of these worlds and putting them in a singular event for the first time in the industry and saying, let's connect, let's network, let's build this place where we can work together and bounce ideas off of each other. And the feedback already has been amazing. We've got a lot of excitement for the attendees. And what's cool is from both sides. You know, the dermatologists that have been attending the symposium for the last 5 years are excited to integrate and work with estheticians and have an opportunity to meet with them. And vice versa, the estheticians are excited to be able to enter this space that we kind of weren't a part of for a very long time. Whether that was because of our own fears and mindset, we just kind of have not been as easily accessible in that realm. And so IET is saying, let's break down those barriers, let's break down those walls, and let's open the lines of communication so that we can continue to evolve this practice. And really it all boils down to ensuring that the client has the best possible experience when they see a skincare professional on whatever level of licensure they have.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm totally not surprised that you're witnessing this excitement, because I know I'm excited too, kind of curious, because like you said, I was a little nervous in the past to approach estheticians and say, I don't really know what you do, and I'm not sure if you're going to screw up what I'm trying to do, or I'm going to screw up what you're trying to do. And this is really, really, really great collaboration. You know, we talked about the esthetician certificate program on Learn Skin, which is for people who are already licensed, right?
Correct. So we are currently only open to licensed. We do have a plan to expand to students in coming months. But what's interesting, and to speak to a point you made, is you kind of said you have this fear of like, what does the esthetician do? I think that's a lot of the kind of concern estheticians have too, is I think a lot of estheticians feel that dermatologists can be too aggressive, which is where I think I fell in love with the Learn Skin platform and this integrative conversation. Is I don't think that a lot of people, just in the general term, know that there's this whole integrative side of things.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. It's thanks to work of a lot of people, and the community is just growing, and having estheticians join the community is just one more exciting part along the way. Now, I want to go back to the point because I want to make an important distinction here that on the certificate program, people who are already licensed can apply. But what about, the person sitting now in their car listening to this podcast and saying, you know what, I see a future for myself as an esthetician. Where can they go to get training?
So there are two different styles of school depending on your location. Some community colleges offer aesthetics programs. Interesting because the program is usually about 600 hours at the highest level. Some states are 900 and some are 200, but none of those actually qualify for financial aid. So we've seen a bigger boom in private schools. So if you're thinking that aesthetics is the career for you, the first thing you want to do is look at what school options are within your local area and then do some research. What are their job placement statistics? What are the relationships they have with the employers in the area? And take the leap to get the license. That's always going to be the first step, because the difference between a beauty advisor that works in a retail space versus a licensed esthetician is the understanding of the skin and the ability to safely apply cosmetics to the client, where a beauty advisor in a retail may apply those products that are retailing to you, but not as knowledgeable, right? And in that aesthetics training, that's what you're really learning, is that interaction of ingredient to skin. And so that's where everybody has to start. That is step number one. But it's really important to find a school that has the relationships and that is interested in building the relationships so that you can leave school not just licensed, but prepared to enter the workforce.
Got it. Well, listen, Richard, this has really been a great conversation, kind of the opening of a broader conversation that we hope to invite everybody who's listening to join, be it at learnskin.com or come to the Integrative Dermatology Symposium and join the esthetician track there, or maybe just go to your neck of the woods and start talking to dermatologists, and dermatologists start talking to estheticians, and who knows what kind of collaboration we will find. I mean, I'm super excited. We started with this and kind of end with the highest level of collaboration probably will be with the research project. So Raja alluded to that as well. But regardless, this has been a really, really great kind of fundamental conversation to start the broader one. So thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you did to kind of bring this conversation together. And I hope that we continue this in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
My pleasure. And I hope to see everybody at IAT in October.
Hey, Raja, do you know where the integrative medicine movement started?
According to Google, since Google knows everything, Dr. Andrew Weil founded the Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Arizona in Tucson back in 1994. Why do you ask?
Well, you know how we always try to get to the root cause? I think we need to go big for the fifth annual Integrative Dermatology Symposium. How about we do this? Let's meet at the Los Ventana Canyon Resort in Tucson, Arizona. Or you can join virtually from September 30th to October 2nd and hear from the world-renowned experts like Andrew Weil.
Exciting. And our theme is connecting mind, body, and spirit to take a more holistic approach to our patient care. What do you say?
Absolutely. I mean, where else can you get the latest on diet and dermatology, hypnosis, botanicals, common diseases, aesthetics, and other unique topics in dermatology with practical takeaways to start using in clinic right away?
So true. And let's not forget, we've got the new track for estheticians too. I think I'm going to need to call in a sick day or two before the symposium so I can enjoy the waterfall and trails on the resort, stargaze, play around a tour of golf or tennis, relax at the spa, and catch up with colleagues at the evening receptions.
Yes, that place is spectacular. You know, use our discount code POD25 at checkout for 25% off.